بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So carrying on from where we left off, Imam Ghazali rahmatullahi alayh, we discussed that he mainly distributes his book into two categories. First one being the acts of obedience that a person should implement, a person should adhere to. The second, the acts of disobedience that a person should refrain from. So now he told us that when it comes to sins that a person must abstain from, there are two types of sins. He says there are sins that a person commits with their limbs, with their body parts, which are known as al-ma'asi al-zahira, the apparent, the outwardly acts of disobedience. And then you have the acts of disobedience which are more inwards, al-batina, which are in the inside, which are known as amradul qulub, the diseases of the hearts. Imam Ghazali rahmatullahi alayhi, first he discusses the sins that a person could commit with their body parts, how we should abstain from them, what we should say to ourselves when we find it difficult to abstain from those sins. What are those sins? So he finished discussing that. Now the next part that Imam Ghazali rahmatullahi alayhi moves on to discuss are the sins of the heart. And where we ended off last week, Imam Ghazali rahmatullahi alayhi said that if a person truly wants to get rid of all acts of disobedience from their life, he said that it will never be possible until a person purifies their heart. He says because the heart is that body part, the heart is that limb, that body part, that when the heart is corrupt, then the entire body is corrupt. And when the heart is righteous and good, then the entire body is righteous and good. Ala inna fil jasadi la mudgha idha saluhat saluha al jasadu kullu wa idha fasadat fasada al jasadu kullu ala wa hiya al qalb. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us this. And interestingly enough, the word that is used for heart in the Arabic language is the word qalb. In the Arabic language, the word qalaba means to turn, to change. But because a person's heart is always changing, and a person's heart is always bouncing between different things, right, that a person must always control their heart. Right, that's why we always ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma, right, that O Allah, right, thabbit qalbi ala dinik, that grant steadfast to my heart, that make my heart steadfast upon your religion. So grant steadfastness to my heart. Thabbit qalbi ala dinik. Why? Because the qalb, in of itself, the name that it was given in the Arabic language signifies that a person's heart is constantly going to be moving from one thing to another. It's always going to be flipping on a person, changing. A person will never be able to just focus on one thing. A person will always look towards other things as well. So therefore, a person's heart will constantly try moving away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the acts of obedience, but a person must constantly bring it back and keep it steadfast upon the religion and the acts of obedience. So Imam Ghazali rahmatullahi alayhi says, اعلم أن الصفات المذمومة في القلب كثيرة. He says that you should know that the blameworthy and the bad characteristics of a person's heart are many. He says that there's so many that we can't even begin to count all of them. He says, وَطَرِيقُ تَطْهِيرِ الْقَلْبِ مِنْ رَذَائِلِهَا طَوِيلَةٌ. He said, and the method of purifying one's heart from all of these vices and evils was طَوِيلَةٌ. He goes, it's a very lengthy process. He says, because of the sheer number and the amount of sicknesses and diseases a person's heart contains, is actually very difficult, and it's a long, lengthy process to actually purify a person's heart. وَسَبِيلُ الْعِلَاجِ فِيهَا غَامِض. He said it's a very, very deep and difficult method to understand of how a person heals themselves from all of these sicknesses and diseases. He says, وَقَدْ اندرس بِالْكُلِّيَّةِ عِلْمُهُ وَعَمَلُهُ لِغَفَلَةِ الْخَلْقِ عَنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَاشْتِغَالِهِمْ بِزَخَارِفِ الدُّنْيَا. He says, and this knowledge and the implementation of this knowledge of how to purify and the act of purifying one's heart. He says this knowledge is now gone. Why? Because people are so heedless. People are so negligent of the state of their heart. He said that it's very difficult to find someone who truly understands the diseases of the heart. Someone who can tell you that this is an issue. Right now, look, truthfully speaking, the only individual that will truly be able to, right, besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the only one that can truly tell you that this is something wrong with me, myself, and my heart, a disease that I have, is yourself. No one else can actually pinpoint exactly what's wrong with your heart. Right? The actions, the outwardly actions, right, they're different. That's why it's actually easier to treat those. A person sees another person doing something wrong, and they remind that person that what you're doing is wrong. Everything that's in the heart is hidden. A person does not know what is in another person's heart. Sometimes whatever's in the heart manifests itself in what a person says to you, and how a person acts with you, how they react. But a person can bear hatred in their hearts towards you and you wouldn't even know. A person can be jealous of you, you wouldn't even know. A person could be walking in your midst with so much pride and arrogance in their heart and you wouldn't even know. Therefore, the only person who truly can pinpoint exactly what's wrong with the heart is the individual themselves. He says, therefore, each person needs to study this. He says, each person needs to study this for themselves and understand, okay, what are the diseases and the major sicknesses of the heart? And what is the remedy? How do I cure myself from these diseases and these sicknesses? He says, all of the other sins that you commit with your hands, with your feet, with your tongue, with your eyes, he goes, all of these are things that other people can help you with because they can see that you're doing these things. Whatever is hidden in the heart is truly hidden. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So therefore, it's only you and Allah. Therefore, the only one that can truly help you is yourself. So he says, therefore, a person needs to make sure that they understand. وَقَدْ اسْتَقْصَيْنَا ذَلِكَ فِي كِتَابِ إِحْيَاءِ عُلُومِ الدِّينِ فِي رُبْعِ الْمُهْلِكَاتِ وَرُبْعِ الْمُنْجِيَاتِ. Imam Ghazali rahmatullahi alayhi, he has another more famous, a lengthier book that he has written, إِحْيَاءِ عُلُومِ الدِّينِ, right, the revival of the sacred sciences. He said that I have discussed this issue in great detail in that book. But that book is quite lengthy. That book is quite lengthy. Right? A 4-volume book, wherein each volume is approximately 500 pages. So he said that 500 pages I dedicated just to the acts of disobedience. And within those pages, I talk about the diseases of the heart and how a person can purify themselves. He says, but it's very possible that a person, right, this is the entire reason why Imam Ghazali wrote this book, the beginning of guidance, right? He wrote this after, because that's a very lengthy book. Where are we to start from? That if we were to talk about some of the major diseases of the heart, the most important, the most detrimental ones, which ones would they be? So Imam Ghazali talks about 3 of them over here. 3. But from all of the diseases and sicknesses of the heart, he talks about 3. And he goes that these 3 are the most dangerous. He talks about jealousy. He talks about ostentation and showing off. Riya. And the third one that he talks about is possibly the most dangerous, is pride, arrogance. So he says that these are the 3 that I'm going to talk about in this book. Everything else, he says that other books, lengthy, it's a lengthier discussion. He goes, but these 3 are the main ones that we need to understand. So he says, وَلَكِنَّا نُحَذِّرُكَ الْآنْ ثَلَاثًا مِنْ خَبَائِثِ الْقَلْبِ. He goes, but right now, he goes, if you want more detail, you can look at that book. He goes, but right now I'm going to warn you of 3 diseases of the heart. هِيَ الْغَالِبَةُ عَلَى مُتَفَقِّهَةِ الْعَصْرِ. He goes, these are evil, these are diseases that are common even among the learned people. Those who have the knowledge of Islam. Those who have this sacred knowledge, even they succumb to these things sometimes. He goes, not even sometimes, he uses the word ghaliba, meaning it's usually the case that even ulama, people who know, it's even difficult for them to abstain. Meaning over here, knowing is not sufficient. Just knowing is not sufficient. It takes a lot of what the scholars call riyada, a lot of exercise, right? Not physical exercise, but they're now exercise with the heart. Right? Meaning a person needs to constantly push themselves. Right? That someone says something to you. Right now, your ego kicks in. Okay, what do I say now? Right? It's very difficult to just get yourself to walk away from that situation, not say anything. Right? You're driving a car, somebody flips you off. It's very difficult for a person to just be like, all right, no, I'm just going to be patient. Let that person zoom off and do whatever they want. I'm just going to do what I'm doing. It's very difficult. For a person to control themselves, especially if that person rolls down their window and they say something. Now imagine just listening and not saying anything. It's very difficult. Right? That much control, seldom does a person have that much control, that a person doesn't say anything. With that much humility, right, it's very difficult. It's mentioned that there was a scholar in Palestine. I believe he was one of the imams of Masjid al-Aqsa. I think he's still alive till this day. The people used to go visit al-Masjid al-Aqsa, and some people would specifically go to visit the scholar and to sit in his gatherings. But after Asr, in between Asr and Maghrib, this scholar used to go around and he used to pour tea for people that are waiting in the courtyard of Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, waiting to open their fast. He used to give dates and he used to give qahwa to them, everybody that's sitting in the gathering. And then after the adhan is called, he goes and he leads the salah. People said that at the beginning, you wouldn't even imagine that this is the imam of Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, and one of the most holiest places on the face of this earth. This is the imam. That right before Maghrib Salah, he's distributing tea and dates to the people. Right? And he's making everybody feel welcome. He's making sure everybody has something to open their fast. And then the moment the adhan is called, he heads to the front and he leads the salah. But now, how many people have this much humility within them? Right? This much humility, that this person is distributing all of this, and then they go and they lead the salah. So he says that these are things, these are sicknesses and diseases that despite knowing, it's difficult to abstain. Right? Jealousy. Right? Every single human being will feel jealous at some point in their life. But people, like, jealousy is not something that you only feel towards people that are not your own relatives or your friends. People feel jealous of their own friends and their own relatives as well. It's not something that you'll be safe from. If you limit contact with people outside, this could happen even within your own family. Jealousy could kick in. Riya. He goes, ostentation. He's going to talk about it. Showing off in your actions. He says that this is a form of minor shirk. That you're standing and you're worshipping and you're worried about a creation. That I got to make sure that my ruku is proper because that guy is watching. You're doing it for him? Now, ibadah is a very sacred thing. The one who you worship and the one who is worthy of that worship is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's it. You worrying about someone or something else while you're worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means that you deep down feel that someone else is worthy of being shown this action. Because that's a form of minor shirk. You're associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? This does not exit a person from the fold of Islam. However, it's a minor form of shirk that really deep down think about what you're doing. You're showing this action to someone else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Deep down you believe that that person should be shown this action should be done for them. It's a very dangerous crime. So he said that these are things that they just creep in a person's heart. And sometimes, despite knowing that it's wrong, it's hard to get rid of these things. He says, لِتَأْخُذَ حِذْرَكَ مِنْهَا فَإِنَّهَا مُهْلِكَاتٌ فِي أَنفُسِهَا. Because these things are detrimental to a person's self. وَهِيَ أُمَّهَاتٌ لِجُمْلَةٍ مِنَ الْخَبَائِثِ سِوَاهَا. He goes, and these three things are the mother of all evils. He goes, all of the other diseases of the heart, they stem from these three. So he goes, these are ummul khaba'ith. He goes, these are the mother of all evil. He goes, وَهِيَ الْحَسَدُ وَالرِّيَاءُ وَالْعُجْبُ. He goes, and that is jealousy, ostentation, and pride. These are the three things. فَاجْتَهِدْ فِي تَطْهِيرِ قَلْبِكَ مِنْهَا. He goes, therefore you must strive very hard to rid your heart of these diseases. فَإِنْ قَدَرْتَ عَلَيْهَا فَتَعَلَّمْ كَيْفِيَّةَ الْحَذَرِ مِنْ بَقِيَّتِهَا مِنْ رُبْعِ الْمُهْلِكَاتِ فَإِنْ عَجَزْتَ عَنْ هَذِهِ فَأَنْتَ عَنْ غَيْرِهَا أَعْجَزْ. He says, look, Imam Ghazali is being very blunt. He says that, look, there's only two categories of people. He goes that you understand what the three evils are. You then understand how you're going to abstain from them. And then you abstain from them. He says, if you are successful in abstaining from these three, he goes, then you can move on to the others. He goes, but if you're unable from abstaining from these three, he goes, then you're not going to be able to abstain from the others. So he goes, it all begins here. If you can abstain from these three, al-hasad wal-riya wal-ujb, jealousy, ostentation, showing off, and pride. These three, if you're successful in abstaining from them, and you can maintain that, he goes, then carry on to the other diseases of the heart. He goes, but if you can't, he goes, there's no point in trying to get rid of the other ones. He goes, this is where it starts. This is the root of all evil. So he says, فَأَنْتَ عَنْ غَيْرِهَا أَعْجَزْ. He goes that if you feel that you are unable to get rid of these, he goes, then for all the more reason you're going to be unable to get rid of any of the other ones. He goes, you're never going to get near that. Because it starts with these three. وَلَا تَظُنَّنَّ أَنَّهُ تَسْلَمُ لَكَ نِيَّةٌ صَالِحَةٌ فِي تَعَلُّمِ الْعِلْمِ وَفِي قَلْبِكَ شَيْءٌ مِنَ الْحَسَدِ وَالرِّيَاءِ وَالْعُجْبِ. He goes, look, don't even imagine that your good intention that you started off with in acquiring this knowledge will ever remain good while a person has these diseases in their heart. He goes, it's impossible. He goes, a heart filled with these diseases, that heart cannot acquire true knowledge. وقد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ثلاث مهلكات شح مطاع وهوى متبع وإعجاب المرء بنفسه. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he says that there are three destructive evils. شح مطاع, obeying one's impulses. وهوى متبع, following one's passions. وإعجاب المرء بنفسه. He says, and for a person to begin admiring themselves, right? To be boastful of their achievements. So now Imam Ghazali rahmatullahi alayhi moves on and he begins talking about them one by one. So this is Amma al-Hasad. So he goes the first one, al-Hasad. He says, what is jealousy? He goes, فَهُوَ مُتَشَعِّبٌ مِنَ الشُّحِّ فَإِنَّ الْبَخِيلُ هُوَ الَّذِي يَبْخَلُ بِمَا فِي يَدِهِ عَلَى غَيْرِهِ وَالَّذِي يَبْخَلُ بِنِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَهِيَ فِي خِزَانَةِ قُدْرَةِ اللَّهِ لَا فِي خِزَانَتِهِ عَلَى عِبَادِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى فَشُحُّهُ أَعْظَمُ. So he says that, look, jealousy is tied to greed. Greed is tied to stinginess. Because all of these are diseases of the heart and they're all intertwined. How? He says, what is Why is the stingy person stingy with their wealth? Because that person has greed. Because what happens when a person has greed? They want everything for themselves. He said, what happens in jealousy? You want, not only do you want things for yourself, you want them to be snatched away from the other individual. So he goes, all of these things tie into greed. That a person who has greed in their heart, that person will end up being stingy, and that person will end up being jealous of others. He said they're all intertwined. So he goes, this one disease connects to two others and makes three in total. So he says, فَهُوَ مُتَشَعِبٌ مِنَ الشُّحِّ. He says, look, he says that envy, jealousy is a greater form of greed, stinginess. فَإِنَّ الْبَخِيلِ. He goes, why? He says, because the bakhil, the stingy person, the miser is the one who is stingy with whatever they have themselves. Meaning they don't want to give what they have to someone else. He says, why is jealousy worse? He goes, because not only does this person not want to give what they have to someone else, they want what Allah gave someone else to be taken away. So it's not, meaning what happens in jealousy? You're not being stingy with only what you have. You're being stingy with what Allah has given someone else. You don't want Allah to continue blessing that person with that. Right? That what is hasad? Hasad is that you want a bounty and a blessing to be taken away from someone. That's the core reason and the main reason for why hasad and jealousy is so bad. Because look, everybody sees things which are good and they want them for themselves. It's human nature. You see something that's nice and you want it. It's human nature. Nothing wrong with that. Now, but what's wrong with jealousy? Not only you're not stopping at that. It's not that, oh, you saw something nice that someone else had. You'll be like, oh, maybe I should get it too. If only I had that too. But at the same time, you wish that you had it and Allah snatches it away from that individual. So now you're being stingy with someone else's giving. With Allah's wealth, you're being stingy. He goes, that's jealousy. Right? That there is an individual who comes, a needy individual. I refuse to give my own wealth, but I also stop you from giving. So he says that that's what this individual is doing. He goes, it's far worse than a greedy individual. A greedy individual's greed is limited to themselves. This person's greed is not limited to themselves now. It now moves on to others. So he says, وَالْحَسُودُ هو الذي يشق عليه إنعام الله سبحانه من خزانة قدرته على عبد من عباده بمال أو علم أو محبة في قلوب الناس أو حظ من الحظوظ حتى إنه لا يحب زوالها عنه. He goes that the envious person, the jealous individual is the one who is pained, who feels a great deal of pain when Allah favors someone else. That you can't bear the sight. You burn inside when someone else has something nice. He goes, whether it be wealth, it be knowledge, it be love, it be anything. So he goes, it's not limited to just monetary things. Right? A lot of times we associate it with monetary things. Someone has something nice and you want that thing taken away from them. But he goes, it's other things as well. Someone has knowledge and you want that to be taken away from them. Someone has love, or people love that certain individual and you want that love to be taken away. Because all of these things are part of the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, in conclusion, what is jealousy? Jealousy is that you want the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He bestowed that individual with to be taken away and snatched away. He goes, حَتَّى إِنَّهُ لَيُحِبُّ زَوَالَهَا عَنْهُ. That in the end, this person would want that favor to be taken away, that bounty to be taken away. He goes that this is something that's so evil. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, وَلِذَلِكَ قَالَ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ الْحَسَدُ يَأْكُلُ الْحَسَنَاتِ كَمَا تَأْكُلُ النَّارُ الْحَطَبَ. But stay away from jealousy, because jealousy eats away at your good deeds, just like fire devours firewood. Because it slowly eats away at your good deeds without you even realizing it. Right? And it becomes, right? Imam Ghazali rahmatullahi alayhi, he says that, look, I actually feel sorry for the person who is jealous. Imam Ghazali, he says, he goes, wal hasud huwa al mu'adhabu alladhi la yurham. He goes that the person who has jealousy in their heart is someone who is continuously being tormented and punished, and there is no mercy shown to that individual. Why? He goes, فَإِنَّ الدُّنْيَا لَا تَخْلُو قَطُّ عَنْ خَلْقٍ كَثِيرٍ مِنْ أَقْرَانِهِ وَمَعَارِفِهِ مِمَّنْ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ بِعِلْمٍ أَوْ مَالٍ أَوْ جَاهٍ فَلَا يَزَالُ فِي عَذَابٍ دَائِمٍ فِي الدُّنْيَا إِلَى مَوْتِهِ وَلَعَذَابُ الْآخِرَةِ أَشَدُّ وَأَكْبَرُ. He goes, he says, there's 8 billion or 7 billion people on the face of this earth. There's always going to be people that will have things that you don't have. There's always going to be people that you witness that are above you. There's always going to be people that you're going to be jealous of. He says that I feel sorry for the jealous person. Why? Because you go out of your house and you see someone with a nice thing, and again you begin to burn inside. And then you turn the other way, and then you see somebody else with something nice, and you begin burning inside. And then you go to work, another person gets a promotion, and you begin burning inside. And then you talk to your friend that, oh, you know, I had a child or something, and you begin burning inside. He goes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is constantly giving people. You're going to constantly be bumping into people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses. And you're going to constantly be burning inside. He goes, it's never going to end. It's not like Allah is going to stop giving people because you don't like it. Allah will continue to bless people, and you will continue to burn inside. So he goes that I feel sorry for that individual. It is a person who's going through continuous torment, and there's no end to that torment. There's no mercy. He goes, and this is how this person will live their entire life. He goes, and the torment of the hereafter is far severe and greater. So this person will not ever be at ease in this world, nor will they be at ease in the hereafter. They'll be punished for that. So he goes that let it go. Nobody will have everything. Nobody. Right? Sometimes, right, a person needs to remind themselves of two things. Number one, you need to remind yourself of the bounties and blessings of Allah upon yourself. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was so kind to me. At this time, this could have happened, but I ended up doing this, and look, it turned out to be good. But a person needs to constantly remind themselves of the good that happens in their life. That's one way of dealing with it. The second way of dealing with it is that these bounties were not yours. They're Allah's. They're Allah's to give. Allah can give whoever He wants. You have no control over other people's wealth. So therefore, why? And what a person needs to understand is you don't need Allah to take it away from that person for you to get it. Just ask Allah for it. He'll give it to you too. Why does it need to be taken away from that person for you to get it? If that's the only thing that puts you at peace, that it be taken away from that person, I don't care if I don't have it. You can't have it. That's even worse. So now you don't even care about the thing. You just want that person to suffer and not have it. He goes, فَهَذَا مُنْتَهَى الْخُبْثِ. He goes, this is the highest degree of jealousy, that you don't even care about it. Right? Sometimes people say, right, I don't care if I don't get it, but that person must not have it. Subhanallah. So now it doesn't even make sense anymore. It's not even that you want that thing, that you need that thing. You just want that person should not have it. Khalas, that's it. That person should not have it. Whether I have it, other people, it doesn't matter. That person does not deserve it. Who are you to judge that who deserves and who does not deserve? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you so many things that you did not deserve. A person needs to constantly remind themselves of these things. And that's how a person will come to terms. That there's always going to be someone that will be blessed with something that you don't have. And you will always be blessed with things that others don't have. That's why the scholars, they say that when it comes to the akhirah, you should constantly look towards those who are above you. Compare yourself to those who are above you. Hold yourself to a higher standard when it comes to the akhirah. When it comes to this dunya, don't look at those who have more than you. Look at those who are beneath you, who have less than you, who are misfortunate. Look at them. This will develop shukr and appreciation in a person's heart, and this will slowly wash away that jealousy. But what is the remedy for jealousy? It's shukr, appreciation. That's the remedy. Imam Ghazali is trying to tell us that that's what you need to tell yourself. That number one, the same Allah that gave him can give you. The same Allah that blessed you with things is blessing him with things. Be appreciative. Thank Allah. If you really want that thing, ask Allah for it. But it's not a requirement that it needs to be taken away from that person. Because now, if that's the only thing that you want, that person does not have it, then now your jealousy is tied to a fourth thing, hatred. So look, this is what Imam Ghazali was talking about, that all of them are connected. They're all connected. The jealousy is connected to all of these evils. So he goes, get rid of jealousy. He goes, all of these other things will automatically either be reduced, or they'll be wiped away entirely. That's it. We'll continue next week. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from these vices. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cleanse our hearts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to implement. Ameen. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.